Hello, Accelerated Algebra 2 students. What I'm going to do today is look at a different method of factoring. This might be a familiar method if you took Algebra 1 at Tartan last year. This is called the box method. It is the same idea as the videos on Delta Math. They offer more of a guess and check looking at the factor method. The box method is more procedural, kind of a step-by-step process that will allow you to arrive at the same answer as the help videos on Delta Math. So I'm going to show you two examples of how to factor. Very first thing is I'm going to take my trinomial and we're going to write it diagonally in the boxes. The next step is you're going to multiply the two corners. Now notice where those two corners came from. It's the first and the last term. And when I multiply those together, I get negative 12x squared. Then I'm looking for the factors of negative 12x squared that add up to give me the middle term, negative 4x. So if I think of the factors of negative 12 that are 4 units away from each other, that's 2x and 6x. But when I add them together, I end up getting a positive 8, which means one of them has to be negative. If two numbers multiply together to give me a negative number, one of the products has to be negative, and we want more negatives than positives, so we're going to do negative 6x. And now what you're going to do with those two factors is you're going to take them and put them in the two remaining pieces of the box. It doesn't matter which one goes where. And then the second piece is now I'm going to go horizontally and look for common factors with these two pairs. So what goes into x squared that also goes into negative 6x? They each share a factor of x in common. If I do the bottom two, what goes into 2x that also goes into negative 12? A factor of positive 2. If I go vertically, these two pairs, factors of x squared and negative 2, or excuse me, x squared and 2x is x. And then the last pair, what goes into negative 6x that also goes into negative 12? They each share a factor of negative 6. The best part about the box method is you should check by multiplying. Does x times x give me x squared? Does x times negative 6 give me negative 6x? Does x times 2 give me 2x? And the last box should always be true. Does 2 times negative 6 give me negative 12? And since my factors are correct, I can write them as the product of two binomials. And here is the factored form of the original trinomial. Since I have this problem already here, let me show you how quick it is if the directions changed. If the directions say solve, we don't do anything different. We still factor using the box method or whatever method, but now our expression is equal to 0. Well, to solve, then you're going to set each factor equal to its own 0. That's called the zero product property. And then it's quick algebra. Add 6, subtract 2, and now instead of a factored form, I actually solved and ended up with two solutions. So there's one example of how to factor with the box method. We're going to look at a second example that just is a little bit more unique. Notice this isn't a trinomial to start. It has an r squared, but it's missing the middle term. And if that's the case, we can always add the extra middle term in. I'm going to call that 0r. The reason why we need that is we need to figure out what do the products multiply together and add up to give me the middle term. So I'm going to do the same piece, 4r squared plus 0r minus 25. And then we're going to multiply the two corners together. Now keep in mind, we're just really multiplying the first term and the last term together. And I get negative 100r squared. Now, I'm looking for factors of negative 100r squared that add up to give me 0. Well, the only numbers that add to give you 0 are identical numbers where one is positive and one is negative. And in this case, 100 is a perfect square. So I'm looking at 10 and negative 10 2r as my two factors. So we're going to play the same game. Look at the common factors going horizontally. I have a factor of 2r that goes into the first term. On the bottom pair, we have a factor of 10. If I do the left pairs, they have a factor of 2r. And if I do the right pairs, we have a factor of -10. And you should check to yourself, do the factors multiply to give me what's left in the boxes? At a quick check, all of the factors work out. So to write our factored form, I'm going to write both factors as a product, and technically I am done. That is the factored form of this trinomial. 2r minus 5 times 2r plus 5. But if I did change the directions and I said solve, one method of solving this problem would be to factor it, and using the zero product property, set each parenthesis equal to its own zero, and then use algebra to solve. And if it's a two-step problem, we can do that in our head. Add 5, divide by 2. First answer is 5/2. The second one, subtract 5, divide by 2, and we get -5/2. And those are my solutions. So, just showed you two examples. Remember, you could use this method, or if you feel like the videos in Delta Math are helpful, that is another method for solving factors.